Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest. Toronto Raptors basketball is back. They've played 2 preseason games now, competing against the Portland Trail Blazers and the Utah Jazz. The Raptors are coming off one of their most compelling summers, coming into the season with an extremely overhauled roster, a new superstar, young guys that are ready to take the next leap, a new coach. So there's a lot to break down, a lot to look at in these preseason games. Now, because it's preseason, you can't really look at the wins and losses and how everyone's gelling, because all that stuff is going to come and when people are actually competing for games that matter. Preseason, it's not really a win-loss thing, so I'm not going to overreact to our blowout win over Portland and our massive loss to the Utah Jazz. Right? You can't overreact. It doesn't matter if we win or lose preseason games. But I'm looking at different players, how they feel on the court, how they look together, and the certain things that Nick Nurse is running on offense. So we're just going to get straight into it. The first player, obviously, that we have to talk about is Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi's coming off an injury-riddled season in San Antonio last year, so as expected, his jump shot has been a bit rusty coming back, especially from the free throw line. Kawhi's been struggling at the line, he's been struggling with his three-point shot, but that doesn't worry me at all. That's all about touch and feel from a historically phenomenal three-point shooter and jump shooter. He'll get that back as soon as he plays a few more games, and he looked a bit better tonight against the Utah Jazz and didn't play too many minutes. Once he gets back into the flow of things, that jumper will be looking much nicer. I'm not worried about that yet, but aside from the jump shot, Kawhi Leonard's game has been extremely encouraging. Just watching him on the court. His defense has been stifling, and when he's on offense, he just commands so much attention. And obviously, we had one of the best offensive players in the league last season, DeMar DeRozan, but DeMar commanded that by taking a lot of dribbles and being almost a ball stopper in our new free-flowing offense. Now, that was effective as DeMar is a great scorer, but Kawhi is doing that, and he's getting isolation plays. He's running his isos within the flow of the offense, which is really exciting to see. You rarely see Kawhi Leonard stopping the ball. He gets to a spot without taking too many dribbles, and that's something that's extremely valuable from your top scorer. It's a lot of fun to see Kawhi in a Raptors jersey, and he's going to be great for us this season, and these couple games have only encouraged me and, elevated my hype for Kawhi Leonard this season. But the person that I've been most intrigued with these couple games in the preseason has been Jonas Valanciunas and how Nick Nurse is incorporating him in the offense. People have been begging the Raptors to give Jonas Valanciunas the ball more on the offensive end, as he's kind of a negative on defense and he's getting a little bit better in that area. He hasn't seemed to take a huge step these couple games, but on offense, Jonas is a very skilled big man. If he's going to be out there, Raptors fans want him to have the ball. And in these couple games, he's been given it. He's been given a chance to have the ball in the post in the, not at the three-point line. Not at the three-point line. That's something I want to get into after. But he's been given the ball in spots to thrive. And it's not only Jonas. Greg Monroe has been given the ball in optimal positions, and so is Serge Ibaka. Now, Jonas has most taken advantage of it as he's the best of the 3 players. But their shot attempts have gone up, and they're getting good looks around the rim. The offense has started to incorporate the big men in the high post. So they're not really messing up the flow of the offense by giving it in there as they're still faced up, but they're put in a position where they can be effective on offense. Right? Last year, so many times, Jonas and Serge would be given the ball around the three-point line. And obviously, Jonas didn't have the handle to do anything out there, so he'd be forced to hand the ball off. But and we'd often see Serge Ibaka try and run isos at the three-point line, which was awful to watch. But now they're getting the ball in more optimal positions. And Jonas has just been eating. He's been eating in that high post. He's been cooking, right? These first 2 games against the Portland Trail Blazers, he's had 17 points in 19 minutes against the Blazers, and against the Utah Jazz, he had 18 points in 21 minutes. Now, if we can have Jonas putting up these numbers on a consistent basis, because if he can keep getting these shots, he's not going to miss them. He's such a skilled big man around the rim. This isn't something that could be out of the ordinary. Right, we've seen Jonas have big nights and, because he's shaking people and hitting crazy post fades and stuff. He has a couple of those nights every year. But right now, he's getting really easy shots, and he's getting a lot of touches. So this is something that could be sustainable throughout the season. And, he did this against 2 pretty solid defensive big men. Well, Nurkic isn't bad, but Rudy Gobert was Defensive Player of the Year. So this is something to really watch. And I know in our hot takes video, me and Riker debated if Jonas Valanciunas could possibly be an all-star under Nick Nurse. And these couple games have maybe shifted the argument a little bit as he's showing to thrive in this new offense. So that's definitely something to look at as the season moves forward. And another intriguing guy is Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry has a lot of drama and everything going around him from the media right now. I think Kyle's just ready to play this season. Kyle seems focused, and looking at these couple games, last year his role was kind of taken back a little bit. Dwayne Casey really wanted him to shoot more threes and not drive in the paint as much, and that made a lot of sense. That was a smart move by Casey, as Kyle would go into the postseason always banged up and injured, but nonetheless, it did take away from his game. So Kyle, the past couple games, has really brought back that driving side, and it's a area of his game that he's really skilled at. It's one of his best qualities on the offensive end. Now, I'm hoping Kyle doesn't revert back to 2015, 2016 Kyle and just completely overworking himself and getting banged up, especially as the season goes along. But it's a nice thing to see him revert back a little bit to that driving game, because it's an area that he can really improve our team's offense. And now that DeMar is gone, Kyle's going to have more of a ball handling responsibility. So I'm looking for him to bring back pieces of that game and not just be exclusively a playmaker and three-point shooter for the Toronto Raptors. Despite all the drama the media is making up about him off the court, I think Kyle's going to have a huge season, especially when he gets more comfortable with Kawhi Leonard. I think this is going to be a huge year for Kyle, and it's going to lead to a lot of team success. A couple other guys that have really stood out to me. Fred VanVleet seems like he's come back to this season somehow even more confident. He's fully embraced his role as the leader of the bench mob, setting up players, really working to create for this team, and it seems like he's more confident in that three-point shot off the dribble, right? I don't know if confidence is the word, because he's been one of the Raptors' most confident players ever since he came into the league. But he seems more comfortable with that three-point shot off the dribble. And if he can get that down, because he was one of our best three-point shooters last year, especially when he was set and got the ball kicked out to him. If he can start hitting those dribble pull-ups all the way from the three-point line, not as well as Curry, but in that fashion, in that Curry fashion, he is going to just completely take another step with this game, because that opens everything up even more, right? Because if you're more of a threat to hit the three right out of the dribble, people are going to bite for your head fakes, bite for your, crossovers to a greater extent. And that leads to more driving lanes, more creations. So Fred is going to have a big season for us. And another guy that looks to have taken a step forward is Pascal Siakam. Now, I know everyone was looking for Pascal to develop that three-point shot, and it really hasn't come to fruition right now. He's only hit 1 3 in the past 2 games, shooting about 7. But even though the shot isn't there yet, it does look a bit smoother and he looks a lot more confident in it. But he has this handle, right? His handle developed all the way through last season. It seemed every game he was getting a little bit better with his dribble. And now it's really showing off. I think this summer he's tightened it to a greater extent, and now he's running the break, right? It's not even just Pascal Siakam. I think Nick Nurse has given the big men and the guys that aren't Kyle Lowry and Fred VanVleet more of a green light to dribble the ball and set up the offense. And that's something that, when you have bigs that can do that, that's similar to what Draymond Green and Andre Iguodala do in Golden State. When you have big men that don't have to throw the outlet and the team can just immediately go into the fast break no matter who's dribbling up the ball. Even Jonas has dribbled up the ball at one point. I don't know if that's the most desired player we want, but having big men that can do that are capable of dribbling the ball up the court, it sets up the offense so much quicker, which leads to a lot more easy buckets, right? They're playing faster, but they're not playing more rushed, and that's a great look for me to seeing the Toronto Raptors playing. We have a huge roster, so it's going to be tough to break down everyone, but the veterans, I'll speak quickly on each one of them. Serge Ibaka, he played decent against the Jazz, really takes a lot of shots, and obviously Nick Nurse is trying to incorporate the big men to a greater extent, and if Serge is going to get that ball in the paint and get those easy looks, we really want him to finish those little post hooks around the rim. Hopefully it's just rust and not a regression in skills or too much worms on how hungry are you. Hopefully Serge will get his finishing back around the rim a bit better. And CJ Miles, he's hit a few threes. He's been getting a lot of run with Nick Nurse. I'm hoping to see him more consistent this season. He has such a good three-point shot, but it seems like if he's on, he's on, and if he's missing, he's got the Terrence Ross effect, right? He just needs to have a bit more consistency. I know he said he had a lot of stuff going on last season, having a kid and a few injuries and illnesses and all that, so I'm looking for a nice season from CJ Miles, and we're going to need his three-point shooting. He didn't have the greatest shooting night against the Utah Jazz, but against the Blazers, he was knocking them down. So maybe it's more of the same of inconsistent play from CJ. Hopefully not. And speaking of inconsistency, Norman Powell, he's had a decent start. Decent is the word. The box score won't jump out at you, but he's a really solid defender, and against the Blazers, he hit a couple threes. We just need to get Norm's confidence back. Get Norm back in the flow of things, making sure he has an opportunity. I think he can be a rotation player despite such a deep bench we have right now. I think Norm can creep his way back in the rotation. I know I've been getting flamed for saying that, and even by Riker. So I have confidence in Norm. He just has a skill set that's right for the NBA. And watching him play even these past couple of games, he's so explosive and he can get to the rim. He just needs to stay under control and be same thing as CJ. Be more consistent on the open threes. And apparently he's put a lot of work in this summer, so I think he'll be good. DeLon Wright, he looks solid. His scoring really hasn't been there. I want him to take a little bit of a higher leap in terms of shooting and be able to make more buckets. But his defense is always phenomenal at the guard position. He can create. His running, he's a maestro in the pick and roll. So he's doing the same things he did last year in these first couple of games. And as for the deep bench guys, they really haven't gotten a lot of run. Kyle Collinsworth got a start against the Utah Jazz. Really didn't do too much with it. I'm sure we'll get a couple games where the deep bench plays really well. We can really see who runs away with the last few roster spots. So that's another thing to look at in the preseason. And Greg Monroe, he hasn't really gotten run with the main guys too much, really. He's brought in supposedly as the backup center. Seems like Serge and Jonas are playing more so the center position, and Greg Monroe has been relegated to the third big man, third 5 position on the team. So it'll be interesting to see if he's actually in the rotation this year. He's looked fine, right? A couple years ago, he's one of the most talented big men on the offensive end, and right now he's not consistent. He's not consistent around the rim. Against the Blazers, he got a lot of free throws, not 3-pointers, sorry. But he's missed a few bunnies, and I'm not sure what that's all about, but hopefully he can get back to maybe his Pistons form. Danny Green, a very underrated pickup for the summer. His 3-point shot really hasn't been there, but really no one's been too consistent from the 3-point line during preseason, and it takes a few games to get back to the groove of things, so I'm not worried about that from him. But his defense looks fine, and he seems to be a lot better dribbler than I expected. He can kind of create and slash. He's not one of those guys that's only a 3-and-D player. He actually has a bit of a handle, so I'm really intrigued by Danny Green. I want to see more of him. But anyways, let me know what you guys think. I've rambled on enough. Who's surprised you from the first couple games of the preseason? Do you agree with my takes? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comment section below. You're the best for making it this far. Check out the Instagram, the Twitter, all that cool stuff. We got a lot of exciting Raptors basketball coming up. So I'm excited as a fan, excited to see the NBA come back, and it's just a great time of year. Great time of year. Anyways, thanks for listening. Cheers.